Okay, we are live now because I see myself, so that's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and get this recorded just in case Facebook tries anything smart. All right, Chris, we are live. You guys, if you can see this, say hello, tell us where you're coming from. I'm here in Henderson, or you can just say Las Vegas if you'd like. Chris, where are you coming from?
I'm in Texas right now.
Texas, nice. All right, let me see if we can make this both of us on here. Oh, gallery view, bam, there we go. Okay, cool, because I don't want to just stare at myself now. All right, so if you guys don't know what this video is about, you are in for your mind to be blown. If you guys aren't following Chris already, it's not a bad idea to go ahead and hit that follow button now, because I will tell you, I don't follow very many people because Facebook has the same statuses over and over again. It takes a lot for me to find somebody I really find intelligent, interesting, and informative. And I find that when I follow Chris Kirkhoff and his posts, he's got more guts than I do, because I'm secretly stalking and I want to share so bad, but I also know I'm going to get in trouble if I do. So if you want that information, and when it comes to vaccines, feeding your babies, breast milk, I mean, he covers everything. He talks about every controversial topic you can think of. If you are not afraid to become aware, then check him out for sure. But of course, this video is not just about why you need to follow Chris. We actually have a message today, and I am so excited to be able to do this message with you. So Chris, without why don't you give people a little bit background on you before we kind of hop into this, because we're on my page right now. So why don't you tell us your quick story and how you became a highly conscious man.
Yeah.
We'll dive right into the CBD comeback.
Yeah. So my kind of story, I started after I finished school, I started working for a very short time in the healthcare industry, and like rapidly woke up to a lot of the negative things that were, associated with that entire industry. I've always been fascinated by like health, fitness, and so I wanted to, work in a field that I thought would help people. And I learned very quickly that that wasn't true. And when I began questioning things, researching things on my own, I realized that pretty much everything that we've been told is a lie on some level, some kind of manipulation. And once I started researching, one thing I'll always say, it's like a domino effect, and you just push one over and the whole thing will topple if you want to see it. If you want to go and see all of each of those individual dominoes fall, there's a story behind them all. And so from there, it's been kind of like a 15-year quest to kind of find the truth, as much truth as I could about whatever topics I come across. And that's kind of where my social media page has turned to, where I'll cover pretty much anything, because I'm constantly researching and reading different topics to kind of not only inform myself, but then hopefully inform other people that whatever information I might be looking for that can help them. And along the way, I've dabbled in mental health work for people one-on-one, physical, diet changes, those kind of things. And then co-authored a book on some of the stuff that you referenced for people that were expecting parents, to kind of navigate that field. And from there now, have found my way to several online businesses, one of which being HempWorks My Daily Choice, for which I am forever grateful. And that's where we are today.
Yeah, and just so you guys know, because I know some of you guys are following me, obviously, and now you're going to probably start following him. But a lot of you guys are like, why do you guys talk about these topics if you're in business? How stupid can you be? Like, I get this all the time. And, it's funny, in the beginning of my career, people are like, you have to change. You got to button up. You got to put the suit and tie on. You got to act right on the internet. You got to do all these things. And now people come to me and they say, never change. So it's an interesting dynamic. And for the same reasons that you probably got into the CBD business, Chris, I found myself into the CBD oil business. And if you guys haven't heard my story yet, there's plenty of videos on YouTube. You can look that up. But to be honest, I was never looking for a reason to uncover mass manipulation of the public by government and pharmaceutical company corruption. I was never looking for that, ever. In fact, I was just looking to tell my story. And when I realized that I wasn't legally allowed to, that's when I started doing my research on my side. So we're not going to make any drug claims. We're not going to make any medical claims on this video. We're not going to tell you what CBD can do for you. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself. It is a secret in this country, and we're going to talk about why it's a big secret in this country. And the secret's already out. So that's already there, but for you guys, you're going to have to experience it yourself. So just as a quick disclaimer, we're not here to make any promises or medical claims or anything like that. So
what's interesting is a lot of the things I think that we'll end up discussing were probably reasons why I took so long to get into this business and industry. I could have been probably one of the first people in the company, but so a lot of the things that I started researching when I started researching CBD, hemp, all the things, I was like, my mind was blown, because I was like, well, I've been lied to. Like, these are the whole reasons why I've like had this guard up for joining, this business and becoming part of this, CBD movement and all the things. And so, had to kind of deprogram myself on this topic.
Yeah. And it's like you said, it is a rabbit hole. And once you uncover one truth, you uncover the rest. And then towards the end of doing this for a few years in a row of just educating yourself and looking for answers, you become very disillusioned with the state of your own reality. So that's what we want to share with you guys today, so that you can be woke as well, because we talk about that a lot. What does that actually freaking mean? But let's go to the beginning. Okay, so before there was this death cult, as we've called it in the past, that's so normal in America today. Before we had this cult where we are forced into the pharmaceutical route of a way of healing ourselves. Before all of that happened, there was a different sort of healthcare available. Okay, so if you go back to like caveman doctors, you guys, I'm reading this book, and of course I'm always reading a book. I actually got this one signed by the author, which is kind of cool. But if you haven't read this yet, I highly recommend you pick this up, because it's full of all kinds of information that you may find interesting. But we had caveman doctors, we had herbal and plant remedies. There was the practice of shamanism and chiropractors, acupuncturists, nutritionalists. Back in the day, this was healthcare before it became surgeries, radiation, and drugs. Okay, so real medicine, just so you guys know, is focused on facilitating the body's ability to heal itself. Now, some of you are like, well, that's impossible, but I'm going to just make you think about this for a second. When you get a cut, does your cut eventually heal itself? Yeah, it does. So why do we think that we can't do that in other aspects of our life, like our other parts of our body? So real medicine is focused on the facilitating, enabling the body to put it into an environment where it can heal itself. Okay, so Mother Nature has always provided for us. We forget this for some reason, but we are humans and we are native to this planet. We are a species of planet Earth, and just like the animals on this planet, we can get our entire sustenance from this planet. So this is how things started out in the beginning, before the drug industry was born. And I'm giving you some of this background, and it'll make sense in a few. But we all know about the Hippocrates oath, right? Which is first do no harm. But he also talked about this, and just so you guys know, this is not a mythological person in history. This is an ancient Greek physician, and his whole thing was don't do anything to interfere with the body's ability to heal itself. So even our doctors nowadays are taking this oath, but it's largely misconstrued and completely far off from how it originally started. So back then, people believed in whole body harmony. It wasn't the Band-Aid approach where you just slap a drug or you take a body part out, or it wasn't a quick fix mentality for taking care of ourselves. But what changed is big money came, and they realized that nature couldn't be owned. So that is the beginning of why things started changing for us. Nature couldn't be owned. And so we run into the prohibition and different things like that. So before I go into all that, Chris, I'm going to hand it back to you. I know you've got your notes too, but what do you want to add on that? Because I know you do tons of research on these topics, especially about unnecessary medical interventions, for sure.
I mean, outside of, emergency acute care for a surgery or something, catastrophic, I find very little need for the medical industry. I think the pharmaceutical industry, that industry in itself is an entire farce. I think that you hit the nail on the head, is that everything that we've ever needed is provided to us. It's been provided to us here on this earth. And that's been proven throughout all of time. And I think if you look at the early history of this country, I think we've always had a plan that farming was supposed to cover also all of our needs. So you look at something like hemp and you look at what it can do as far as food, medicine, fiber to make clothing. I mean, there's nothing that it can't do. I mean, everyone's ever seen the movie. I'm sure most people have seen the movie Forrest Gump, where the guy starts talking about all the things you can do with shrimp. Like this is what pops in my head when I think about hemp, is like there's some 50,000 uses for it. It goes way beyond where most people are thinking about the oil and that, but it's a really limited view when you start thinking about the fact that you can make paper from it, you can make rope. That's how they sailed over here with their sails and their ships. The rope and the sails were all made from hemp. You look at plastics, you can make houses from it. A big one that no one really thinks about is fuel, oil. Our cars could all run on this. And so when you look at what happened in the Industrial Revolution and what some of these corporations and industries did to us, they changed the course of history and where our country should really be. They've set us back on so many levels, not just environmentally and how we're destroying this planet, but from a health standpoint, where we should really be as a civilization has taken, leaps and bounds setbacks from where we should be. And so something that has for all of time been used for so many ways to all of a sudden come to an abrupt halt because people were greedy and big money and big corporations wanted to stop that, it's one of the most tragic stories, I think, in all of history, especially in regards to the history of this nation.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about it is it's preached to us, and the general population and public is unaware of this mass misinformation that is allowed to be taught, and it's insane. I mean, and you hit the nail on the head. You said hemp can do so many different things. Well, in the 1930s, right when the Industrial Revolution was just kicking off, Henry Ford made the first hemp car, and he was making hemp oil, and he was doing all these things to start to kind of go in that direction. It's why they called hemp the billion-dollar crop then. But hemp can replace so many different things that it did threaten all of those industries, which is what led us to William Hearst. Okay, he was the guy that did magazines, right? He was in the media, paper magazines. He was using paper for his magazine. So when he found out about hemp coming on the scene, he and Lamont DuPont, who was the creator for nylon clothing, tires, paint, DuPont, you probably remember it now at NASCAR. It's a brand that's still heavily promoted because of the tires and that kind of thing. But these two got together and decided that they knew that their industries were being threatened. So they had to come up with a way to stop hemp from taking over, because they have to protect their investments in their own businesses. So even though hemp is better for the planet, it's better for humans all around, big money was allowed to step in and change the trajectory for the next 50 to 80 years, which is insane. So also around the same time, I'm sure you have in your notes too, but these two came up with a plan that was funded by a banker at the time, which was Andrew Mellon. And the interesting thing about Mellon, he was the owner of Gulf Oil at the time. Gulf Oil, I don't know if you guys have heard of the Seven Sisters, but Gulf owned Texaco, Mobil, Chevron, and Shell. So the big oil companies. So big oil is now coming to back up the paper and synthetic industry, synthetic plastics and that kind of thing industry. to prevent hemp from moving forward and being allowed. And not just hemp, you guys, all of cannabis, really. I mean, cannabis, period, across the board. So we always say, you know, oh, we don't have THC in our products. But, you know, if we could, we freaking would, because there's nothing wrong with THC as a cannabinoid in the plant either. So it's there for us for a reason. It's a native growing plant on our earth for a reason. So I don't want to alienate the THC out of this, or just say hemp, because it's really both sides of cannabis that's, you know, so important for our humanity as a whole. So aside from all that, people think that we're here just to bash pharma, but it really wasn't all about pharma. It was the alliance that was created between the textile industry, the oil industry, plastics, and pharma all got together. And that's when you guys may have heard about the John Rockefeller. He was also the owner of Standard Oil, and Andrew Carnegie also were all in on this together. So sometimes I talk about Andrew Carnegie because I'm talking about Think and Grow Rich, and I'm talking about the success formula he came up with, but we didn't mention the nefarious things that he was involved with that changed the course of history forever. So let's talk about a little bit why CBD is now making a big comeback now. And I think we often overstate CBD, because it's not just about CBD, although it's very popular now. It's all the cannabinoids in the hemp plant, you know, and in the marijuana plant. But why do you think now, after all these years have passed, why do you think now is the time that CBD is now making this big comeback and push back to the American people?
Yeah, I think education. It's like it starts with education. You know, you mentioned William Hearst. Like, this guy owns so many different publications and control of the media that everything people were seeing. So you got to think about like the 30s, 40s, 50s. Your access to what you know, the information was what you want, you know, what you heard on the radio, what you might have read in a newspaper, or you know, in his case, tabloid magazines, which were more associated with actual kind of media back in the day than kind of the connotation that they have now. So your sources of information were basically what you were told from these big money corporations and people that own these media sources. And so now, thankfully, with things like the internet and, you know, our access to our own research, people were able to start thinking for themselves more, educating themselves, and realize that they've been played for a really long time when it comes to this plant. And that information is everywhere, and it travels so much faster that the education, I think, was to the point where just too many people were catching on. And we've gotten to a point where the planet in itself, I mean, this started in, for the most part, this ban started in America, and they took it to a global agenda. You know, once they got it prohibited here, they went globally with it to where all these other nations were doing the same thing. And so our planet's in a real mess. You know, our food supply, you know, these corporations, it's interesting how much damage they can do without any repercussions. You know, you mentioned DuPont. I think the movie just came out on how many people they've basically killed with their toxic chemicals and how they try to cover it up. We know what the pharmaceutical industry does every year, you know, with their synthetics. And Rockefeller and DuPont were very close friends. All of these people were in alliance, basically. That's, you know, the term elite, you know, that's where this comes from. All of these people with their money and their corporations, they all worked together. They were all in collaboration to, you know, have this operation to ban this plant. And there's just no repercussions. You can kill millions of people, and at the very most, a fine, which is a drop in the bucket to billion-dollar industries, and yet they get to carry on. And so now, over the course of a century, they've put our planet in a huge hole that we're trying to come back from. And one of the ways that we need to come back from it is by bringing this plant back so that we can fix the food industry. I watched this video about farming, and you know, you look at most of the foods that you have in the store now and how many chemicals and things they have. They're not even food. They're just food-like substances. And so going back to the roots of farming and what it's all about, fixing, you know, even the clothing industry, you look at clothing, oil, things like that. Our country produces almost nothing. We import everything from everybody else when we could be mass producing hemp and having all of these products ourselves, our own clothing, which is stronger, more durable. You know, hemp is something that grows extremely fast. I think it was the 90 days, 120 days, 3-4 months. Like, it's extremely fast. No pesticides, no herbicides needed. It yields more. The entire plant is used. It helps the soil. So we could retake all of these industries and basically fix a lot of problems. And I think we're to the point where we have to do that. The hand was forced essentially to have to allow this to come back.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. With social media now, I mean, information is easily accessible, which in the age of information, ignorance is a choice. And I firmly believe that, because we have so much information available to us now, and people are talking. I mean, back then, before there was the internet and ways that people really could collaborate, you had to only collaborate in person or take all your information from what was being put on your TV screen, which again was controlled by the elite. So even to this day, the media is 70% owned by pharmaceutical companies. So when people are saying, well, the news says that we need to get our flu shot this year, just consider the source, okay? These are the same people that brought to you all the other drugs that killed millions and millions of people. And it's the same people that took away hemp from us from the very beginning. So the other interesting thing about, just to circle back around to Andrew Mellon, this big banker who owned the 7 sisters in the oil industry, he was also the Secretary of the Treasury at the time. Okay, so some of these, and still to this day, you see pharmaceutical company owners also having positions in government all at the same time. So in case you can't figure out how to connect those dots, stay with me here. But Mellon appointed Henry Anslinger, and he made him the federal bureau. He made him at the head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics.
His son-in-law.
Yeah, his son-in-law. So, okay, so what does that mean, you guys? You've got big oil owner who's funding Hearst and DuPont, who's appointing his family member to be at the head of basically the DEA, right, of the time. And that says, and then this guy just got done with doing the prohibition of alcohol, which was now over. And what does he tell him? He says, go after cannabis next. If we can banish cannabis from our entire culture, then all of our companies can thrive. Everybody stays sick. Everybody's forced to use these alternatives that are bad for the planet, and our profits go up. So nowadays, with information, we've got Facebook Live now, we've got Zooms where we can educate people like we are doing right now, and you guys have the ability to spread the word. And why does that matter? Because knowledge is power. And if enough people wake up to the truth, then we can actually create change. And I know for myself, that is my motivating factor behind HempWorks, behind my daily choice, behind all the things I've ever attempted to do up until this point. It's to bring mass awareness to people. So you see CBD making a huge comeback, and that's because we went headfirst into an educational movement. Why is it that the ECS, the endocannabinoid system, is not taught in medical schools when it is the main electrical system of your body? Why is that? It regulates so many aspects of the human body, yet we're not studying it. Why not? Well, there's a million reasons for that we could explain. Chris, I know you could explain that probably better than anybody. But CBD is here now, and it's here to stay, whether or not these big industry giants have anything to say about it or not. And the reason is because you can't patent nature. You can't stop nature from having its way one way or the other. So you see big profits trying to stop the industry, but you also see good people like Chris, myself. Yeah, I'm going to call myself a good person here. You see people that are trying to make a change and make the world a better place. So I don't want to keep you guys on here for too much longer, but Chris, anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think it's just, it really does come down to education. How many people get a message, when they start in, let's say, the CBD business? How many people get a message where people are like confused still because they don't know the difference between hemp, marijuana, cannabis, like all of these different terms are being thrown out. And you have to understand the historical significance is that that's exactly what they utilized against the people to ban this. When they went forth with, a bill, a law, whatever, people were signing off on it because they used the word marijuana. They used a term that had come from south of our border, and they used that to associate that with all of the plant. And then they were like, then they associated it racially with people of, you know, different ethnicities that were using it to demonize it, and people had no idea what they were even signing off on to ban it. And you still see some of that. So that's the exact question that I think I get more than anybody, is people are asking me the difference between all these things because they still don't know. But now we have access to the information to give to people, the articles, the videos. You know, you can inform the people, and you'll see how quickly the walls and the stigmas break down. You literally, I've sent people like one article, I'm like, read this article on hemp, cannabis, all the things, your ECS system, and they'll read this article and it's broken down so easily, and they'll be like, wow, I knew none of that. Like everything I was told was the opposite of what that article and that research told me. And so we have all of the resources we need right now to completely, you know, crumble those last remaining stigmas that are against this plant, and start, you know, bringing this country and the things that it was meant to revolve around back to the forefront, back to the importance of farming, and producing things that can actually benefit our bodies, our environment. Now,
I know you say that sometimes your heart gets heavy because you're in the front lines of dealing with trolls and ignorance and all kinds of people that are so committed to the misinformation because it's what they've been told for so long that they literally can't break away from their unawareness. But I see a different future outcome. I do see that it's going to take time for sure, because, you know, people are going to take their own time on their own journey, and until it happens to them, which it will eventually, they will have an experience that will force them to wake up at some point. I believe that. But I do see a better outcome for our world and our planet and our future. And I do believe that together, as we bring this information to people, we can create a better place. So in the future, I mean, right now it's going to be messy for sure, because you've got everybody fighting. You've got everybody saying all their mixed opinions all over the place. You've got political parties pretending to actually stand for something. Don't get me started on that. But I do believe in the future, when hemp is fully returned to the planet and cannabis in general, I think that a lot of things are going to change, and you're going to see a fully sustainable world outside of the money-hungry people that damaged it to begin with. But again, it's all, if I can inspire you guys to do one thing, it's to do your own research and to do your best yourself, because we literally have to become the change we want to see in the world. We can't just expect other people to do it. We can't just depend on Chris because he's got a great Facebook page to do all the research for us. We got to do it ourselves, and we got to share the awareness ourselves so that we can impact more people. So any final words you'd like to share with anybody?
I mean, that's everything you just said is pretty much what I believe in. And, you know, question everything, take the time to, you know, research whatever topic comes across. Just don't take anything you've heard from, you know, the media or whatever's out there. Just don't take anything, you know, as truth. Make sure you know, research for yourself and come to your own conclusions.
Absolutely. So I know you guys thought we were going to pitch HempWorks at the end of this, but that's not really the intention of this video. Literally, we just wanted to bring you guys this message. Of course, if that's something you are interested in, hit up Chris or whoever shared this video with you. Thank you guys for hopping on, and we will see you on our next video. Bye, guys.